Having an artist along for the whole journey of the print, I think alleviates a lot of the pressure because they see what goes into it and how much it is, how flexible the process is, but just that I think that they value it a lot more if they get to go along for the ride.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. This is a bilingual podcast, so if you subscribe to us, you'll be getting episodes in English with me, as well as in Spanish with Ronaldo Gil Zambrano. Together, we speak to people around the globe about their practice and passions in the field of print media and multiples. Hello, Print Friend is brought to you by Speedball Art Products. And in 1915, Ross F. George published the first edition of the Speedball textbook, which quickly became the superlative resource for artists and letterers of all skill levels. This is a great resource for the gig poster gang or for folks who want to develop their own fonts and letter forms for screen or relief printed work. Now, over 100 years later, the 25th edition of the Speedball textbook has a convenient lay-flat construction and over 120 pages of examples, contributors' works, and innovative technical insights that is sure to inspire and appeal to scribes and enthusiasts across the spectrum of experience. There's a link in the show notes. Hey, print friends, did you know that Florence, Italy is home to Srisa? It's a leading institution for art and design education. It offers highly personalized instruction and experiential learning, meeting American university standards for study abroad programs in fine art, liberal arts, and design. Educators who are interested in teaching at Srisa can lead faculty-led programs utilizing its top-notch printmaking facilities in one of the world's most inspiring cities. To learn more, email info@srisa.org. That's SRISA.org. And don't forget to mention that Hello Print Friend sent ya for exclusive discounts and perks. This episode is also brought to you by Legion Paper. Legion Paper is a fine art paper company that represents the best papers in the world. They either stock it, source it, or make it. With brands like Stonehenge, Somerset, Coventry, Reeves, Arches, and more, Legion is the best paper resource for every artist and printmaker's needs. Learn more about the variety of papers Legion stocks at www.legionpaper.com. My guest this week is Tony Clough. Tony is an artist and collaborative printer working in Los Angeles, California. We talk about his winding road to printmaking and print publishing, his fascinating fractal compositions in his own artwork, and the art of collaboration. Hi, Tony. How's it going?
Hi, Miranda. It's going great.
Thank you for welcoming us into your studio and letting us meet your sweet dogs and showing us the setup you have here. And I remember seeing your work on Instagram a while ago and just was really taken with it. It feels great to be here in the studio with you and to get to have a conversation about what you're doing here.
Yeah, thank you for coming to visit.
Would you let me know and let our listeners know? I have the 3 introductory questions that I always ask the guests, which is to say who you are, where you are, what you do.
Yeah, who I am is a big question. We'll start with where we are. We're in Pasadena, California at Serio Press, the print shop that I own and run and print at. Who I am, where I am.
And what you do.
And what we do. What I do, I'm a printmaker, printer. So Serio Press is a serigraphy shop. We print fine art serigraphy for artists, galleries, museums, whoever wants to show up and produce some work. Who I am, like I said, is a big question because recently I've been working through some therapy that asks the same question, and I realized that it's a larger question than I thought it was. Anyway, who I am, I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, originally. I'm a youngest brother in a group of 4. I have 3 older brothers. I moved here right after high school and moved here to the LA area, to Los Angeles in 2003, right after high school. And I studied animation and graphic design. That's where I learned I didn't go to an actual university. I went to one of those for-profit colleges that went out of business because they were so sketchy. But I learned a lot of software there. Mainly when I think of schooling, it's what I learned with mostly Adobe software, but all that stuff used to be Macromedia and Quark Express and all that, 3D Max. And I start earlier. I guess now I'm getting into history. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always like to ask people, like, kind of an invitation to history, what role art had in their formative years. So before you knew you wanted to move to beautiful, sunny Southern California from Indiana and look at graphic design, what part was art or visual culture or making playing in your life?
Yeah, that's a fun question. I've always liked drawing. I didn't do a whole lot of painting, I don't think, because it was just hard. I don't know, it takes more time to set up and clean up and stuff like that. I always loved art class. That was like the highlight of the day and through grade school and high school. Yeah, just a lot of drawing. Had friends that drew a lot. We'd draw. As a child, I remember drawing a lot of like stick figure. We would draw these huge scenes of like stickmen wars, really violent, super violent stuff, big whatever scenes of wars, and we'd do these like Suicide City things that were, thinking back on those, were a little bit dark, but like
just a little.
All these ways to kill yourself and stuff. And yeah, just always like drawing and being creative with whatever I had around, with pencils and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting that question. That's a fun one to answer. I think that mostly what I did was, wow, I guess I don't even remember what we did in art class. It was like a little bit of clay. I remember making a mask one time. I don't feel like we explored a whole lot, some painting and drawing. But yeah, it was always a big part of like my head, thinking about art and wanting to make art. But for some reason back then, there was this underlying feeling that it's more like a hobby. It's like child play or childish to even, it never seemed like something that I could pursue because it's not like a real job or a real career or what your parents usually would want you to do. But yeah, it's always been there really heavily. And just recently I learned how to lean into it seriously.
Yeah.
So that's been fun to, I guess, lean into something that's been there for so long.
Totally. And so you decided to move away from home and come to this part of the world. And you were studying, as you said, sort of graphic design and that sort of thing. And so at what point does printmaking enter your realm of consciousness, that you learn that this is something that people do, that this is a way of making art objects and putting them in the world?
I didn't even know what screen printing was until after college. I don't even think I knew that it was how t-shirts are made. And so I had no knowledge at all and all the other great types of printmaking, of course, I didn't know anything about. But I got a job after college, basically putting together files for print, for offset printing, people's business cards, flyers, stuff like that. I was doing a little bit of web design back when Flash was like the new cool web design thing. And so I was working for someone just basically prepping files and stuff. And he had been subletting 2 small workstations at a print shop, the West Side location of a print shop called Modern Multiples. And so I was working there and prepping files or whatever I was doing. And at that print shop, something happened where I think someone hadn't shown up for work that day who was going to be printing or something. I wasn't really connected because we were just subletting a workstation there. And the owner there, Richard Duardo, he was like, he needed help with something. And I thought, I'll help him with something that's like hands-on. Like, that's cool. I'm just typing on the computer with a mouse, messing with files. And so I went and helped him with a little bit of just one small whatever he was doing. And it just clicked that I liked working with my hands with physical stuff more than what I had studied to do, which was graphic design. And so I kept helping him a little bit, and I ended up being a printer there.
Yeah.
Just learned on the, what do you call that? learned on the job site or whatever.
Yeah. Got like the technical training, just jumped in. Yeah, definitely. And then your life before founding your own press, you were in the art world for a decade and a half. So what else was going on before Serio Press?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was in the art world. I was watching the art world a little bit. That experience, first working at Modern Multiples, opened my eyes quite a bit because I started to meet people who were coming there to have prints made, like Shepard Fairey, who was probably the biggest client that Richard had there. And so meeting artists, working artists, was really inspirational, just to see that people, it is possible to make art for a living and have fun. And after that, I worked at Modern Multiples from 2007 through 2013. So I was printing there constantly, always. And I made art here and there at home, tried some painting, and of course making prints and stuff. I had access to the studio, so I could work on all kinds of print projects that I wanted to after hours and on the weekends. And just hanging out. I still didn't quite take myself seriously as a possible artist working, and which I'm still not a working artist, but I think it was still there, just a little bit more heavily on my mind of it's something that I wanted to do, to make art, and a lot of drinking along the way. So yeah, a lot of drinking and a lot of printing and art.
It's easy to, as I say, fall into that. Maybe that's not the best way of putting it, but like if you're someone who's inclined to do a lot of drinking, being in the art world is an easy place to do that. It's just kind of omnipresent, right? It's in every opening.
Oh yeah,
totally. You do an art fair. There's free champagne in the VIP lounge, all of that kind of thing. So yeah, easy
absolutely.
to do.
Absolutely.
And so, at what point did you know it was time to start your own business and break out on your own?
It was pretty unexpected, I'd say. I envisioned myself at Modern Multiples for a long time. I liked it there. And things just slowed down a bit from what I can remember. And so I got laid off during a slow period. And I think the expectation was that I was going to wait around on call to be available when things picked back up again. And I started trying to come up with a name and a logo and look for a small art studio to do whatever I could do. And that summer of 2013, I found a small art studio in, I guess, on the edge of Boyle Heights, right across the river from Little Tokyo. And I had a big art panel, a huge art panel. It's actually right around the corner there that I hadn't made any art on yet. And I turned that into 2 sawhorses and a board print table and got a few screens. And that was when I didn't have a lot of the equipment, like the washout tank and the exposure stuff. And Shepard was letting me expose screens at his studio and stuff back then. And I just slowly started building because I didn't have a job. And when I considered the idea of trying to apply for jobs and trying to find a job somewhere, I just couldn't, it just didn't seem to make sense. And I thought, if I can create my own job instead of trying to get one, I'd rather do that. So I gave it a try, and slowly over the years, it survived.
Yeah. And so at the beginning, were you finding work through commissions? Who were you printing for in the early days?
It was just word of mouth. People who knew me, and I'd get phone calls. They'd say, like, "What are you doing? Are you printing? Can you make a print?" And luckily I had a few screens and I could at that point. So a lot of the very early people, I don't even remember their names. It's been so long ago and I haven't kept in touch, but they were just very small. I think the largest I could print was 18 by 24, maybe a little bit larger, and just word of mouth. I think there were people that were pleased with what I gave them, and so they'd tell other people.
And would it be working with an artist or producing like a gig poster? Like, what was the actual kind of early content?
Most of these were people producing prints either that they wanted to release at a gallery show or they wanted to release online. Not many, I don't think I did many gig posters. There was one I did for some Hollywood Bowl thing with M83. Yeah, it was mostly artists looking for art prints that they could sell themselves or release at a show.
Totally.
Right.
And during this time, are you keeping your own studio practice? Are you making your own work?
Yeah, I mean, I always messed around a little bit, especially then. I felt like I had the time because I wasn't busy like I am now. I didn't have a line of people scheduled through the year, just packing the schedule like crazy. And so there was a lot of downtime, and yeah, I loved filling that time with whatever I felt like working on.
Yeah.
And that was when I started developing fun ideas, working with outside of the normal limits of the process with the rotating sheets and, I don't know, stretching the screen fabric in weird ways and just getting creative with the process.
Definitely, yeah. Can you talk more about the rotating screens and doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, that was the first one. I forget how it came about, but I had gotten interested with trying to come up with designs that were, if rotated 90 degrees 4 times or 3 times, however you want to say it, would fill in the whole sheet with these kind of pieces of color and stuff. But it would be the same stencil printing rotated 4 times. And that was something I think that got released with One Time Run or 1X Run. Everybody says it differently in Detroit. And it was just, it was such a fun idea to me because I had never seen anybody do it. And it felt really playful with the process. And I think I don't know if that kind of fed or turned into what I like to do now, or if that was always there, but working within the process and exploiting different kind of aspects of it just started to really interest me. And I always liked this sort of, I don't know if this relates at all, but I really liked I think it's called like game theory stuff with one of my favorite artists is Saul LeWitt, with all these kind of like systems of like how pieces can come together and be remade and made. Yeah, so I value the process a lot and like to work inside it.
Yeah, when you're talking about the rotating pieces that fit and fill that's the image, it reminds me a little bit of MC Escher. That idea of these like interlocking pieces and all the different angles and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I don't have the technical skills for drawing like that, but yeah. Or maybe there's probably a lot of his work that I don't know. I'm just thinking of the stairs that go in all different directions and stuff. But yeah, it's always just been really fun for me because the more I work in screen printing and printmaking, it gets it's so heavily repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
It can get very boring at times, or it just gets mundane. And I think a lot of these things, even a lot of the things that I like to mess around with come from mistakes that I make while printing. And a mistake sometimes just a mistake that looks ugly and not really something I'd like to use, but every once in a while there'll be something that I'd start to wonder if I can control that kind of mistake that happened or use it in some way and kind of mess around, like I said, within the process, just look for things and have fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned stretching the screens as well. What is that process? What's that outcome?
Yeah. The screens in screen printing, of course, they're made out of fabric, so they stretch just like any fabric, like a bed sheet, right? You can kind of like move them around. If you poke it, it stretches, and it like that. When you see that graphic of like space time where it's like poking a piece of fabric up, I had realized that you can kind of place objects under the screen to change the registration in specific areas. So if 3 corners of a rectangle are hitting registration properly, and the 4th one isn't, you can't shift the paper,
right?
But you can sometimes stretch the fabric of the screen and pull it to fit. And then so I started using those objects to actually just move shapes. Like a line could turn into kind of a slightly squiggly line just by placing like round objects under the screen while you print it. Pulls the fabric in different directions. So that was used in, there was a print that I made, the 20 horizontal lines in slightly different colors. And it's just a bunch of lines, but I was using objects under the screen to make those lines just slightly curved so they weren't touching in areas next to each other and they were touching in other areas. And it was just fun to, first of all, to realize that, oh yeah, it's like this. I can't believe I didn't realize that this is just fabric that moves like any other fabric. I can try to manipulate it. And then to do so is just fun to experiment with.
What it sounds like is it's, which you spoke to a little bit, is it's this kind of your familiarity with screen printing that's done in the straightforward way just runs so deep at this point after countless pulls, I'm sure, of ink through a screen. And so in your personal practice, you get to break those rules, right? Like you would never, if you're creating a perfect edition for a museum, you're never going to want to put anything under the screen for that. But when you are left to your own devices, you're being the person who can break the rules of perfection, it seems.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. And in terms of the process of actually creating the repeating forms, like, are you using mathematics for that? Are you just doodling until it fits? Like, how are you actually creating images that interlock or can be repeated or can be layered in a way that creates a completed form in the end?
Yeah. Part of it is just like logistics or using math with rotation. I think it might be about half and half is actual planning and having an idea of what I want. And then the other half is just messing around and rotating it and seeing what happens. With the first one, the squares, it was pretty obvious. If this square is here and I rotate it 90 degrees, it's going to end up here and here. And I can map that all out really easily. Excuse me. With the latest things, a lot of let's see what happens. And once it happens, I'll decide if I like it or not.
Yeah.
Or it might kind of push my mind in a new direction, like, oh, that's what happened, like this part of it, but I don't that part. And it just keeps evolving a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And so with Serio Press, you're, I'm sure, taking commissioned work. If somebody says, I need a poster, but you also produce editions with artists, correct?
Yeah.
And so talk to me a little bit about finding those artists, about the collaborative process, and what that side of what you do looks like.
Yeah, that's been fun lately. We've gotten to a point where it feels a little bit more comfortable gambling with publications, where if we produce and publish a piece of art with an artist and sell it, we have to hope that we can sell them all and be able to split profit and hopefully break even at least.
Yeah.
Compared to what we could make just with contract work. And so we've started to do that as much as possible. I don't know, maybe quarterly or 6 times a year. And so we just reach out to artists that we like and see if they're interested in doing something with us. Some of them at the higher levels, of course, don't even respond.
Yeah.
To be expected. But it's always worth reaching out. And some artists are friends that we already know or whatever. It's been fun taking some of those experimental ideas that I come across or develop have been useful to, sometimes they seem to speak in some way to specific artists, and I'll think like this kind of cool little idea could work really well for this person's style of art. And that can help with pitching an idea if I want to actually pitch an idea to an artist, to get them maybe more excited in doing something. And yeah, it's been a little bit up and down. Some we've done really well with some of those publications and sometimes not so much, but we have also been trying to focus on trying to work with artists and build their print market. So that can be part of their career as well, because it can help to be able to reach collectors that want to have your art, but maybe can't afford a full-on original painting. They'd like to be able to get something more affordable, like a print.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And is that, let's say if you're reaching out to an artist you don't have an existing relationship with, does that go into the pitch when you're saying, I swear it'll be fun, come work with me, we'll do something great? And then also, you get the opportunity to create an original work that they can then expand their audience with. Because I think artists who maybe aren't as familiar with the depth and breadth and benefit of doing prints, they may just have gotten approached to do, for instance, like reproduction cliches. And that's such a different creature than something that is made by hand, that's made in a collaborative setting, and that really has that artistic aura about it, I think, in a way that just, here's a small print on paper that is a photograph of my painting, just never will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be sometimes part of the pitch. It's an uncomfortable area, though. If we definitely don't try to bother people much and try to like beg them to work with us, there has to be some sort of, that's not a good way to start relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are people, there are artists who just aren't interested in making prints, and it's not something they want to do, and that's totally fine. Yeah, and sometimes it can help to explain exactly what it means to, what type of value a print edition can bring to either a career or a show or an audience that might want to purchase them. And yeah, also to explain what we do.
Yeah.
How we print, and yeah, that it's made by hand and all that fun stuff.
Totally. And I think too, what I've run into having been in the print world and the commercial world a long time is, unfortunately, sometimes, depending on how deep into the artist practice an artist gallery is, sometimes the gallery that represents them can have more resistance than the artist. Because from the gallery's point of view, I think they say, I don't want you to create a more accessible price point. I want everybody who wants your work to step up to your oil on canvas price, not recognizing that some people will just never be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a valid argument. I don't know the truth, but up to the gallery, and that's up to the artist. And it might be true for some artists, it might not be true for others, but it's worth exploring if that's, maybe the gallery knows best.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't think so. But I'm biased. I'm in the print world, but I don't think so. I think that it's funny because the art world is so based around, I think, in some aspects of it, and some dominant aspects of the art world, it comes from a sense of scarcity. It comes from a sense of access. And so it's the more money you spend, the more access you get to the art, to the artist.
Yeah.
And I think anything that subverts that power dynamic, like an original multiple, there's going to be people who resist it, which I think is unfortunate, because I think that there are some people who, no matter what they do, they are not going to buy a 5-figure, 6-figure painting.
Yeah.
But they are going to have their lives improved by having a work of art in their life that they love.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's an exclusive system. And I think that that's one of the valuable pieces of printmaking, is that it is inclusive in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I guess you could say, for the people or something like that. Yeah, it's very important. I think that I'm not interested in having that conversation with galleries and trying to argue them into making prints if they don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with people who do want to work.
Yep.
Work with us.
I think that's very healthy. I think you're going to save a lot of sanity by doing that. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the process of when you do get an artist who has seen the light and is choosing the right and has decided to come make an edition with you, about translating their work to the medium of serigraph. And because it's such a versatile medium, I think people associate it with these really hard lines, this really graphic aesthetic. And it gets used really beautifully in a lot of ways. We mentioned Shepard Fairey earlier. I think he's an example of an artist who does that. But you'll create almost painterly looks in what you create. You'll create sometimes 23 layers. And on the other side of it, there's an incredible softness. And so maybe if you could just speak to the beginning stages of that, when you're saying, okay, do you want to create something as an artist that has more of this feel or that feel? And what is that actual process like?
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Watercolors and oil paintings and even a lot of acrylic paintings that have a wide variety of color and value. Um, they require a number of layers to achieve values and whatnot. So the first part of the conversation is about what's achievable and how much that costs, because there's no sense in taking it too far if it's just a project that's going to be too expensive. But anything is achievable. It can take a lot of work, it can take a lot of colors, and it can take a lot of headaches. Luckily for me, when I was at Modern Multiples, I worked on a number of projects. The ones that come to mind most are prints for Carlos Almaraz. And there was a woman, Catherine Villeneuve, who would separate by hand on transparencies with airbrush and those grease pencils and paintbrush and all kinds of stuff. And so I never learned how to do that. That was way too much for me. I don't have the technical skills to make art like that. But I saw how it came together because I would print them while she separated. And if I hadn't experienced that type of project, I don't think that I would have thought that it were possible. But having worked through those projects, I could actually see that it's possible. And so I work digitally instead of manually like that, but it just takes a ton of colors. And you have to be willing to put the time and headaches into it.
And as you say, have this almost three-dimensional chess in your head around artistic outcome, price, time that goes into it, all those sorts of things, and then hopefully come out the other side. As you said, something that breaks even.
Yeah. One of the good things about the publications is that it feels more like a collaboration. So we communicate with the artists as much as possible to make sure that they're comfortable with the direction the print is going, down to like individual portions of the print. This watermelon, does it look the right shade of green? And so we can adjust along the way as we're going, and it stays fairly comfortable. Where with either long distance prints or a lot of contract stuff, you're working on someone else's art and they might have an expectation that is very different from what you produce or what you even can produce. And so I think I guess what I'm getting at is that having an artist along for the whole journey of the print, I think alleviates a lot of the pressure because they see what goes into it and how much it is, how flexible the process is, but just that I think that they value it a lot more if they get to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got onto that topic, but
I was trying to pull apart the nitty gritty of working with artists and working with a variety of artists. I think because as you've said, everyone has different expectations, everyone has different familiarity of what it means to create an original multiple, what it means to create a silkscreen or screen print or however you want to call it. And how I would imagine that you, as the owner of the studio, you need to be able to be pretty flexible and be able to communicate in a bunch of different ways in order to get an outcome that everyone's happy with.
Yeah. Those have never been my strengths either until recently. I've worked a lot on flexibility and communication, very important skill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Are there any recent projects that you want to shout out here? Anything that was particularly challenging or rewarding or interesting?
Yeah, I'll plug my own art. Recently, we did a print with Lily Wong, who's I think she was in Brooklyn. She might have moved her studio, but she's in New York, and we released that recently. I was really happy with the way that turned out. That's pretty similar to what we've been talking about just now with, I think it was 20 or 22 colors, using a lot of that diffusion dither anti-pattern halftone process thing. So that was a really fun one. Lily Wong. It's not released yet, but we've been working on a project with Jake Longstreth, some of his trees, and there's a few pretty fun projects coming up. Everything that I work on I feel like usually it's on a weekly basis. So like per project will be a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And when I finish a project, I move directly into the next project and completely forget everything that happened the previous week. So it's hard to remember what I've been working on even in the last month or so. But yeah, Lily Wong comes to mind because that was a publication of ours, and it was fun, it was frustrating, and it was delightful to see it come out the way it came out.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one. I saw it online, and it's a really effective image, and it has that really rich quality that we were talking about of just getting like all of the layers and creating that real sense of scale and space through that. So yeah. In the time we have left, I'd love it if you take the opportunity to let people know where they can find you, Tony, and where they can find Serio Press and follow you and see the good work that you're doing and maybe buy a print.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. SerioPress.com is the website. Of course, most action is on social media. So Serio Press or at Serio Press on Instagram. We don't do Twitter or any of that other stuff, I don't think, or Facebook. But Serio Press is SERIO Press. And Tony Clough, CLOUGH, is on Instagram at Tony Clough. Yeah, it's mostly Instagram, and the website is where we release prints. We have a newsletter to sign up for if people like emails. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, beautiful. Tony, thanks for sitting down with me this afternoon. It's been really fun to get to know you more, and I look forward to sharing what you're doing with all the print friends out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
And that's our show for this week. Join me again in 2 weeks' time when my guest will be Carrie Ocone. We talk about what it's like to work in an intergenerational letterpress shop in Los Angeles, California, creating wedding invitations to the stars. You won't want to miss it. If you like today's episode, we have a Patreon where you can help support the podcast and get bonus content like Shop Talk Shorts with past guests. But the very best thing you can do to support this podcast is listen, rate, follow, and share with your fellow print friends around the world. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you in 2 weeks.